So what is Tailwind CSS? And it's basically a combination of low-level classes in CSS. CSS in this case stands for cascading style sheets. I assume you already have some basic knowledge in HTML and CSS, and if you don't have that foundational knowledge in HTML and CSS, you can still follow along and you'll be able to grasp a thing or two, because this was intended to be a beginner series for everyone. So there's been a bone of contention between Tailwind CSS and Bootstrap CSS, and the main difference, as I stated, is Tailwind CSS is a combination of low-level classes. That means we have a class that represents an attribute which is as simple as padding or a margin or a background, and if you've interacted with CSS, you'll know that that is a CSS attribute. But in this case, Tailwind has created that class that represents that specific attribute. I'll click on this link and as it loads, I would like to explain what the difference is with Bootstrap CSS. So Bootstrap, on the other hand, is component based. That means you will have one class that represents making a button or making an accordion or making a carousel in that instance. But the problem with that is you have the danger of having websites looking similar in shape, color, and etc. But on the other hand, those lower level types of classes in Tailwind CSS allows us to form things like cards, forms, buttons in a much quicker way. It might be more classes compared to Bootstrap CSS, but it gives us a lot of capabilities in running our templating. If I go to, let's say, components as an example, I just want to show you the type of things that can be created. I said forms and etc. Let me just show more here. So if you want to represent things like forms, for example, I can just open this in a new tab. See, we're using the low level types of classes. We're able to create things like this. As you can see, it's a simple form. It looks nice, but it's created using the low level classes. And you can have the light mode and the dark mode as an example. To better explain this, let's do an example. I'm going to go through this and go to this URL, play.tailwind.css, and it's basically an online area where you are able to explore Tailwind CSS without the initial setup process. So I'm going to highlight everything and just create something here that is going to expound on how we use the Tailwind CSS classes. In this instance, we're just going to create a button to show what it's going to turn out to be. So I'm going to start with a div, and this div is basically going to have classes of, let me say, a width of 100, and then I want it to occupy the whole screen. And basically, if I highlight this and let me see, okay, so if I just get on top of the class like this and hover, you see head screen shows it's a height, 100% vertical height. So that's what the classes basically represent. A width of 100 means it's going to occupy the whole screen. And which other class do I want to add? I want a black background, bg black. You can see it's representing on the right. It's already changing everything. Then I want a padding of 5. Remember, padding is on the inside, margin is on the outside. And then of course we said we are creating a button. This button is going to have different classes, and the first class is a background, indigo background. And then let me just put in some text and say this is a button. And then since it's not going to show here because we've not put in some elements that are going to work on it. So if you give it a color, give it opacity as well, as you can see here it is. Then we want the text to be white. padding on the x-axis to be, let's say, 3, then padding on the y-axis to be 2. You see, it's changing live as we continue, and this is basically just our working process when you're creating a button. I want everything to be capitalized, then increase the font medium. You see, now that is how we create a button easily on Tailwind CSS. That's it. I hope you will appreciate that. As much as there are many classes in Tailwind CSS as compared to other CSS frameworks like Bootstrap, it actually allows us to go deeper and customize the colors. Here we can even change and have another background that necessarily doesn't have to be indigo. We can have a white background, but when you have a white background, why would you have text white? So we can have another color for the text, then let's say black as an example, or blue. But if you give blue, you need to give opacity. As you can see, the different options in blue, I can give it 700, and that's the text color there. Okay, that's it. See you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.